Wowzers, right. Well, let's get straight into the next conversation. I'm joined by Nadine Dorries now in the studio, the former Culture Secretary, close ally of Boris Johnson. She's here with her book, The Plot, which I'm sure you will have read about, you would have heard about on this station and beyond. Nadine, lovely to see you.
Hello,
been waiting for you to come into this studio for quite some time, so I'm delighted you're here in the flesh. Now, I understand you were with Boris and Carrie Johnson last night, and I just wondered... yesterday afternoon, and I wondered what the general chat was perhaps about a political comeback for the former Prime Minister. I mean, where's his thinking at? Can you give us any insights at all on that?
Do you know, it's bizarre. I saw a story, I think it's in The Sun today, which says that there's talk about a plot to bring Suella in and for Boris Johnson to become Tory party vice chair. I mean, I actually almost spat out my drink as I read it. You know, it's just a nonsense. Why would anybody think Boris Johnson wants to come back?
Well, given the way he indicated that this week.
Well, he said
this week.
No. He hasn't ruled out not coming back. But when? You know, this is a man with a winning record. He won the mayoralty in London twice as a Conservative. We'll never do that again. He won the Conservative Party a majority, an 80 seat, once in a generation majority.
And then people say
bigger percentage of the vote share than Tony Blair did in 97. And the only substantial, truthful reason why he's removed as Prime Minister was because he didn't eat a piece of cake that was brought to him at his desk for which he received a fixed penalty notice. That is the only element of truth in the whole saga
we'll get into
Boris
the plot.
Johnson's
we're going to get into the plot in a moment.
Why would he come back if MPs removed him in the way he did?
But he's hinting that he would one day want to come back. And of course, we remember the Cincinnati reference. But you're suggesting, I mean, the idea of him coming back as vice chairman of the party.
Honestly, that is thought.
So you're saying he'd only come back if he could be party leader and by association Prime Minister?
No, you said that. I didn't.
Well, what do you think?
What I said was that one day, as in Boris's own words, you know, can we envisage a Conservative Party of the future without Boris Johnson playing a major key role? Absolutely not. It's unthinkable. You know, this is the winner. He is the winner. Why would the Conservative Party contemplate that? And actually, when you look at what's happened to the Conservative Party since they removed him, what has happened? It has sunk faster than a stone. And the idea that, you know, we could move forward and regain the ground we're going to lose.
If he's a true Conservative, sort of somebody who's a poster boy for the Tory cause, so to speak, then surely he'll be champing at the bit to come back and help Rishi Sunak to campaign to win the next general election. Because I would imagine Boris Johnson doesn't want Captain Snooze Fester-Rooney, Captain Hindsight, Keir Starmer to be the next Prime Minister.
Now, they were all united in the fight against socialism, and we don't want that to happen. But I think, you know, with the greatest of respect, there are basic courtesies which need to take place, given what Rishi Sunak did over a 7-year period to make sure that he became Prime Minister. There are certain things that Rishi Sunak has to do. One of them is he needs to swallow a bit of humble pie and accept the fact that he's taking the Conservative Party into a massive, crushing defeat, a defeat which may see us back in Westminster as the third party. And I think if he wants the help of Boris Johnson, he's going to have to pick up the phone and ask for it.
Is that you speaking, or Boris Johnson?
And that is a basic...
Is that what Boris Johnson
No, I'm the
saying?
person sat in the chair. That's me saying that.
All right. So on Rishi Sunak, you talk about him, conniving to be Prime Minister for 7 years. This is what I find interesting about the plot, because obviously you lay a lot of the blame at Michael Gove and some of his acolytes like Doogie Smith and others. But at the same time, I suppose my key question for you is, who do you think was really responsible for Boris Johnson's demise? Was it Michael Gove or was it actually Rishi Sunak?
So it was I do feel sorry for Rishi because he was taken in by a group of people, Dominic Cummings, Michael Gove, Dougie Smith, and these people are just amazing operators. They've been operating at the heart of the Conservative Party for 20-odd years. I mean, Liz Truss and I have had a number of conversations about this. And she was aware of them. She was aware of them 25 years ago. So they've been operating at the heart of the Conservative Party, very much deciding who will be Prime Minister and who will be removed as Prime Minister. You know, Michael Gove's, the stabbing Boris Johnson in the back, you know, who was behind that? Well, you know, Dominic Cummings and Dougie Smith, and the same people are always there. And in fact, the plot starts actually with a detailed interview with Ian Duncan Smith.
Yes.
Who was told by Michael Gove back in 2002-3, we've put you in as leader. What you have to do is crush and burn the Conservative Party so that from it, a new modern Liberal Party can rise from the ashes. When Ian Duncan Smith said, well, actually, no, I quite like conservatism and I think we can win as Conservatives, they got rid of him. And it's happened ever since. They put in place, and there's always one of them, or more of them, right at the centre of number 10, right at the Prime Minister's side, driving the show.
And I understand the premise of that, and also let's go on in a minute to talk about the sort of yellowization of the Tory party and the idea that righties aren't able to stand, and that CCHQ keeps to want to recruit a lot of Liberal Democrats to stand in Tory seats. But just back to one sentence that you said at the beginning of this conversation, you said that Rishi Sunak had spent sort of 7 years trying to become Prime Minister at the expense of Boris Johnson. Are you saying that when he was running the consultation into disabled toilets, when he was at the Communities Department, that he was doing that, when he was being extremely deferential to Boris Johnson, calling him Prime Minister, wasn't calling him by his first name? You know, he very much played this sort of apprentice to the master role. Are you saying even then that this young MP is plotting to bring down Boris Johnson?
So he won his seat in Richmond, again, detailed in the plot. How he won his seat in Richmond, I think, tells you all you need to know. And the selection process that took place, the role of Dougie Smith in him being selected for that seat. And indeed, if you look at it's in fact, I'm doing a second book now to follow on from the plot. If you're going into slightly more detail on these issues, if you look at how his selection took place and look at his role as Chancellor. So there are a great many things that Boris Johnson did when he was Prime Minister, levelling up. And he was really fantastic. And actually, the reason why he won the 80-seat majority was because he had a foot in every camp. He, on the left, he had net zero, he had animal welfare, and over on the right he had Brexit, and he thought tax cuts. And when Rishi Sunak became his Chancellor, he blocked every single
Sunak isn't the first Chancellor in history to block tax cuts.
Well, Gordon Brown did it famously with Tony Blair.
I know, but Treasury orthodoxy has been complained about, since the dawn of Conservative time. I take your point.
Well, there's a lot more to it than that, Camilla. It's not just tax cuts,
Nadine,
how they were done.
I appreciate exactly what you're saying, and I totally agree with you when it comes to Boris Johnson being an extremely effective campaigner and communicator. He had an 80-seat majority, and unfortunately he squandered it.
Because he didn't squander it, because
he didn't perform well enough as Prime Minister.
No, he did.
Because he's great at campaigning but not at governing. And you have to say that he made extraordinarily bad choices. What on earth was he thinking, first of all, bringing Michael Gove back into the tent after he'd been stabbed in the back in 2016?
So that's explained in an
error of
interview.
Judgment. What was he thinking, having Dominic Cummings, who he knew was Michael Gove's right-hand man from the very beginning, as his own right-hand man? Boris made a series of catastrophic errors in who he had in the team around him. Why can't you make him take responsibility for it rather than blaming everyone else?
In fact, I let him explain in his own words in the plot why he did that. And it's actually really fascinating because Michael Gove obviously persuaded Boris Johnson. I think I do ask Boris in the book, did he apologise to you? And I think Michael Gove did. And I can't remember Boris's exact words now. But at the end of that conversation with Michael Gove, he trusted Michael Gove. And what he believed was
an error.
If I can just finish, what he believed was that the primary concern of people like Michael Gove and Dominic Cummings was to drive the agenda of the government forward, to make the UK a better place, to make sure that we delivered Brexit. And I think he says in his words at the beginning, I think there's Wordsworth, how great it was to be in that dawn, to be alive. And that dawn, how great it was to be alive. He believed that what they were doing was working with him to achieve those goals he set out. And it took him a long time to realise that what they were actually doing was working against him in order to get Rishi Sunak.
Although wasn't there a part of him that thought to himself, I want to be the front man here, I want to be the showman, I want to be the performer, but I need a details guy, so I'll put Gove on detail in the background. I'll sort of give him this pseudo-deputy PM role, but you're saying that Gove then abused that power in order to unseat. But
Boris says that in his own words
but
in the
Nadine,
book.
Anyone that's ever sort of spoken to anybody about Michael Gove, and if you look at the history of the situation, you look at 2016, anybody with a modicum of intelligence, indeed half an education as an old Etonian, and a former Oxford graduate would have been able to say, you probably can't trust Michael Gove.
No, and therefore it's better to have Michael Gove inside the tent than outside the tent.
All right.
It was always fascinating how, when we had a cabinet meeting, again detailed in the book, it was always fascinating how at cabinet meetings that journalist at Michael Gove's old newspaper, The Times, knew chapter and verse what happened in that cabinet meeting before we'd even left the building.
Yes, once a journalist, always a journalist, you could argue.
Well, that's the reason why he's never held high office. He's never held high office because Michael Gove is infamous for his leaking. But it was actually and David Cameron would have done the same thing.
Although he won't be the first cabinet minister in history to be infamous for his briefing.
I'm sure lots do, but I don't think they do it with such
Let's talk about Kemi Badenoch's criticism of you in this book. She says that you're a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
What's your response to that?
She's slightly obsessed. And what I'd say is...
she might say you're obsessed with her relationship with Michael Gove.
Well, I think we're all slightly obsessed with Kemi Badenoch's relationship with Michael Gove, aren't we? Given that Michael Gove has been her sponsor and her mentor.
She says they've fallen out.
Yeah, and, intriguing reasons as to why, which I think we're all going to find out about fairly soon. But it's Kemi Badenoch, so Dougie Smith.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just let me answer this question first. Dougie Smith is one of the best friends of Kemi Badenoch's husband, Hamish.
Okay.
Dougie Smith has also been a mentor of Kemi Badenoch. Dougie Smith's wife, Munira, wrote all her speeches when she was in the leadership husting. She's very much the product of Dougie Smith and Munira.
Okay.
And
she might argue she's the product of herself.
And, well, so I disagree with that point, but I think you can judge somebody by their friends. And when somebody is being pushed into a leadership position, like somebody like Dougie Smith, who has created chaos at the heart of the Conservative Party for 20 years. Well, he's
out of number 10, isn't he?
He's out of number 10 since the plot came out. But I don't think Rishi Sunak quite knew. I know Rishi's read the book. I don't think Rishi Sunak quite knew the truth and the depth of Dougie's role over 25 years, or that of Michael Gove. Both have been sidelined, as well as Dominic Cummings. But, he's still on the Conservative Party payroll. He's still earning £100,000 a year from the Conservative Party.
You mentioned William Ragg at the weekend. You've spoken, I think, to the Mail on Sunday about the honey trap MP and his involvement in Boris Johnson's demise. Who do you think was William Ragg's master in all this?
Oh, well, there's a reason why Rishi Sunak didn't want to remove William Ragg's whip.
So it's Sunak.
There's a reason why, I'm led to believe, it was Graham Brady who also insisted that Rishi Sunak did not remove William Ragg's whip. So we will see. William Ragg was absolutely instrumental in the Pincher affair, which was a sting, which we are, as time has passed now, we're going to learn a lot more about.
Are you saying
No,
Sunak?
I don't. I think Sunak's slightly, there are people working for Sunak who are doing the operating below Sunak. I think sometimes maybe he's caught unawares by some of the things that the people who work for him are doing. But William Ragg was very closely associated with the Chris Pincher sting, which brought down
that's
the Prime Minister. But I have to say, when I was writing the plot, one interviewee after another kept saying to me, you need to include William Ragg in this. And William Ragg is such an insignificant figure. And you could, if you want to find William Ragg, look for him in the subsidised Westminster bars or in the bar of the Carlton Club or in front of a camera anywhere calling for someone to resign. He's such an insignificant, quite unintelligent figure.
Well, he's not here to defend himself. He could just say he's being sociable when he's in the Carlton Club and the other parliamentary bars.
Yes.
All right, well, OK,
so
we've made your point on
the
Ragg.
cutting room floor, and I wish I'd kept it in.
All right, fair enough. Well, you have got a second book to come. Let's ask you a final question, Nadine, while we still have the benefit of your wisdom on David Cameron. You once said he had a woman problem. Does he still have a woman problem? Or does he just have a problem with you, Nadine?
No, it wasn't just me who said that. There were polls that showed it quite significantly. It was talked about a lot.
Why do you say that? I mean, do you still think that's the case with the Foreign Secretary?
The polls showed at the time that women just weren't trusting or wanting... I mean, we would probably, if he didn't have that problem, we might have got a bigger majority in 2015 and not gone into a coalition.
But what did you make of his appointment by Boris Johnson? By Rishi Sunak as Foreign Secretary? Because obviously there's the link to Richmond there, because I think he wanted William Hague, and William Hague said, no, why don't you have David Cameron? And that could be evidence of your sort of plot.
There was a lot going on behind the scenes on that, and I think Cameron was very quickly popped into place, and I think he's doing a fantastic job, by the way, as Foreign Secretary. He was popped into place for a reason. I think the reason was there was obviously things are very badly going the wrong way. And what if Rishi Sunak, it was at the time that votes no confidence were being talked about, and what if Rishi Sunak was about to be removed? Well, there are plenty of Tory grandees and people who would not want Kemi Badenoch or anybody
So you
from
think
the right.
Cameron might be positioning himself to return as leader? Very, very, very quickly, just literally a simple question and a simple answer needed because we're running out of time. Rishi Sunak, will he still be Prime Minister by the time we go to the polls?
Look, if Andy Street and Ben Houchen lose their seats, the mayoral Tees and Birmingham.
Yeah, other candidates are available.
And we do really badly, other candidates too, and we do really badly in the local elections, it will be very, very difficult.
So he might not be Prime Minister come
He may not be.
All right.
Conservative MPs might think, well, we've got till January 2025. If we could change... Boris Johnson turned it around in 6 months.
So he could come in on a white charger?
No, he's not an MP.
Well, who would you prefer to see lead the party at this stage?
Oh, my God, I don't know.
No, indeed. Right, we've got to go to a break. I'm being told in my ear, go to a break, but I could talk to you all morning. Here's the plot. It's Nadine's much talked about book. When's the next book coming out?
I can't say too much at the moment.
You're writing again, which is intriguing in itself.
Well,
Nadine Dorries,
never do another political book and it's coming out.